Not having my fiancé's twin as a bridesmaid? My fiancé, 25M, and I, 22F, are having problems with his family, and don't know where to take it from here. My fiancé and I have been together for 4 years and are getting married next summer. We are paying for our own wedding to avoid opinions. My fiancé has a twin sister and 2 other older sisters. In an attempt to explain his dynamic with his mother quickly, my fiancé often refers to her jokingly as his business partner, as their relationship is a bit cold. I have previously had a great relationship with his parents. It's also important to understand our relationship with my fiancé's twin sister. We have never been close due to some situations and personality traits. The vibe is very holier than thou. I will attempt to describe some of many instances that describe my fiancé and I's challenges with his twin. While my fiancé and her attended the same college, she would take a nap and my fiancé would be expected to pick up her car, get her groceries, fill her car with gas, and then return it to her. She did not learn to pump her own gas until she was 21. She found out about some of my fiancé's exciting new job opportunities and had her husband apply for all the same jobs in hopes that he would get them instead. She is now recently married with a baby. Following our engagement, his family immediately started asking who was going to be in the wedding party. We discussed including family and concluded that we both wanted each other to have whoever they wanted in order to be comfortable on our wedding day. I chose not to have his sisters as we were not close and he was on board. Long story short, I have moved out of state and my fiancé's family found out that the sisters, especially his twin, were not bridesmaids and were hysterical. His parents accused us of things such as making his twin cry so hard that she wasn't sleeping and that we worsened her stomach condition to the point where she had to go to the hospital. They met with their priest about us. His parents informed my fiancé that I was showing my true colors, will control and manipulate him my whole life, and that he should think long and hard about this wedding. They told us that as long as his twin was happy, everyone was happy. They informed my fiancé that he needed to muscle up to me and stand up for his sister. Through all of this, my fiancé was heartbroken and furious at his family for talking about me in such a way and for treating us like this. A lot came after this and I haven't seen them in months, even when I come home to town. Where we currently stand is that Dad and fiancé are on speaking terms, and though he hasn't apologized, but is now constantly telling my fiancé how much he loves me. His mother and sister won't talk to him or I have not seen or spoken to his parents or his twin since this and don't know if I should suck it up and get seeing them over with before the wedding or not. Comment 1. NTA. It's your wedding, not theirs. However, you need to seriously consider if this family dynamic is something you are willing to deal with long term. It seems like the people showing their true colors are his family and you both, you and fiancé, need to set some hard boundaries now. Comment 2. NTA, if you give in now, you'll be giving in to her for the rest of your married lives. Your wedding is your day. She already had her own. And I doubt you were a bridesmaid at her wedding, so there's no reason she should be one at yours. Comment 3. NTA, you haven't created drama, twin sister is the drama queen and the family has chosen to let her. You and your fiancé need to read Don't Rock the Boat. The only reason you had a great relationship with these people is because you never challenged their world view in which cis was the most important entity. Get yourselves out of that boat and stay out. Telling my future sil I won't be an uncle to their child? I, 22M, was legally adopted by my aunt and uncle when I was 6. My uncle is the brother of my biological mother, who had some drug problems, was in and out of jail for a while and eventually gave up her parental rights. My adopted parents already had a son, my biological cousin, now 25M. When I went to live with them, he was jealous of me, probably used to being an only child. He would say mean things to me when our parents weren't around, like my real parents didn't want me. He also always said I wasn't really his brother, and he never introduced me as such to his friends in school. The bullying got so bad that our parents signed us all up for family therapy, hoping it would help. It didn't, it got worse when we got to high school. We pretty much lost contact when he left for college, but see each other occasionally in family events, anniversaries, Christmas and so on. Well, a few months ago he reached out to me. He said he wanted to tell me that his girlfriend, now fiancé, was pregnant and that the prospect of being a father made him think back to our childhood and how he treated me. He wanted to apologize. I said I was not interested in building a relationship given our history, but wished him the best. Last week I saw him and his fiancée at our parents' house for our mom's birthday. She met me in the kitchen and said something like, "So you'll soon be an uncle." I told her I would not be an uncle, because as her partner always said, I'm not really his brother. She seemed really shocked. I got the feeling he never disclosed our history to her. I think I could have been nicer since she's not to blame, and I admit seeing him still triggers bad memories to me. My cousin/brother texted me the next day asking why did I say this to his fiancée and that I'm within my right not to forgive him, but he's hoping I leave her out of this. I told him I was not rude to her, just told her the truth, which he failed to do so far. Comment 1. NTA people, who are meant to be your family, don't get to be shitty to you all your childhood, and then turn around as an adult and say, be at family, and expect you to be okay with it. You're entitled to your feelings, and nothing is going to change any of your trauma overnight. Comment 2. NTA. You just informed her about the strained relationship between you and your cousin, which isn't rude statement to make at all. It is your cousin/brother's responsibility to own up to the bullying and explain to his fiancée why you do not consider him a true brother. Comment 3. NTA. Your feelings are valid and he should not have dismissed them like he did. His apology is a good thing, but it'll take more than a simple conversation for this kind of trauma to resolve itself. I would not be totally closed to initiating a healthier relationship with him if I were you though, but it has to be on your own terms. PTSD can be treated and I'd recommend you find the resource in your area to start healing. Leaving a pregnant woman outside of her doctor's office without a ride home? I was picking up my 2-year son from daycare, which is in a commercial building that also has a doctor's office. When I was strapping my son in his car seat in the parking lot, a clearly pregnant woman approached me and got quite close to where I was standing, like 2 feet from my open car door where I was bent over to buckle my son in. She asked for help with her Uber and said she doesn't speak English fluently. I spoke with the Uber driver on speaker and he was at another branch of the doctor's office in another town and he advised us to cancel and book another Uber. I offered to do this for her and cancelled her ride and typed the correct address into the app for her, but she kept deleting the address and then handing me the phone again. I told her I was putting the address in correctly for her, but she continued to delete the address. I felt like I couldn't do much more for her at that point and said a few more times she needs to enter the correct address into the app. There was a clear language barrier. I only speak English and am average at Spanish, and her phone had Farsi letters on it which other than recognizing that have no knowledge of. I started to leave and she kept asking me to stay and help her. I told her I needed to get home and that she wasn't allowing me to help her. She got very snippy towards me as I got in my car and left. I felt bad because she was pregnant and seemed distressed about getting home, but I felt like we were at a stalemate in what I could do for her, and I was also uncomfortable with how close she approached me initially, that I was with my young son, and that she kept deleting the address when I typed it in. Comment 1. NTA. My take. She was clearly going to use an Uber. At worst. Her language skills are so poor that it made it an ordeal. Okay, at worst she was a scammer, but in terms of you being the a-hole, this would be a good thing. She was in a safe place. A doctor's office. At this point it's on the doctor and their receptionist to help set her up with an Uber. Comment 2. NTA. This was likely a scam. The end goal was probably to prey on a mother/child who will ultimately offer to drive her home. Inevitably, once the driver gets to that address, she gets robbed, trafficked, or killed so they can traffic her child. Always trust your gut in situations like this. I think your instincts were correct. Comment 3. NTA. You're not responsible for anyone but you and your child. While it's nice to help when you can, it's not a requirement. She made you uncomfortable, and you left. As you should have. I understand your concerns, but she could speak to someone at the reception desk if she felt stranded. Not fighting for my daughter to be valedictorian? My daughter's school did not choose her to be valedictorian for graduation, and she is still salty about it. Her high school normally goes with the highest grade point average, but it can be between the top 5 students if one demonstrates high academic achievement like winning a competition. My daughter was the leader of and won a national robotics competition, and being the top 1 to 2 students she was sure she would get valedictorian. But the school broke away from their criteria by choosing a girl who had been in a car crash caused by a hit-and-run driver. The girl wasn't badly injured, but her mom died from the accident, and she went on to finish the year with good grades. She wasn't in the top 5 students and only took one AP class, whereas most previous valedictorians came from the IB or full AP course load. My son was valedictorian 4 years prior and also did full IB. So my daughter was really angry when she found out, because she felt like it was unfair and also thought it was racist because kids and parents had been complaining only Asian students ever got the award. According to her, the last 8 years it was always an Asian who had won, and while my daughter is half Asian, so is my son, the school was trying to find a non-Asian to appease the families. She said she would have been okay with the other 5 top students winning, but to give it to someone with just above average grades when the criteria was about academics made her feel like she and the other 5, which according to her were all Asians, was discriminated against. I don't know if this is true, and I understand why it's unfair and even agree with it to an extent. But the girl lost her mother and still finished the year with good grades, and that should be recognized. Also, the valedictorian had been made public, and if my daughter tried to get it overturned, it would make her look like a sore loser. I did explain all this to her and told her she was going to MIT already with a partial scholarship, and everyone knew she was smart, so she needs to accept sometimes unfair things happen. She was extremely angry at me for not going to the principal about this, and my wife was also angry because she felt like the school discriminated against our daughter. She is now in her first semester at MIT, and while she likes it, she says most people in her classes were valedictorians in their high schools, and she feels like she was robbed when she worked so hard. I thought she would forget it, but she seems to still be angry about it and not as close to me as before. Comment 1. Nah, except the school. I don't love the power they have to arbitrability award something like valedictorian, which I always thought was based strictly on GPA, to someone who really wasn't in the running. Your daughter has every right to be upset, but what can you do? Sure, you could argue for her, but you'd be painted as biased, and if it had already been announced, they wouldn't have changed it anyway. I just don't see what you could reasonably have done. Comment 2. NTA, as unfortunate as that is, and despite how much she does deserve to be valedictorian, I think it's an important lesson in how life can be really unfair, and how you have to learn to cope with it. I agree in that I think it would make things worse if you and your wife had fought the school about it. It seems like a world-ending injustice to her now, but she will move on eventually. It just might take a while. Comment 3. My nursing school did this. One of the students got cancer and still finished. She was a good student but did not have the hugest grades. The student with the highest grades, who should have been valedictorian, was crushed. The school is the a-hole here. They should have specific criteria for this. Other things can be awarded for their resilience or hard work, but valedictorian is based on GPA.
Creating a GoFundMe to pay for my brother-in-law's expenses. Last weekend my brother-in-law passed away very unexpectedly, and as there was nothing available for a funeral service, so I created a GoFundMe to cover funeral expenses. The niece and nephew were very appreciative at first, until we hit over 6,000. I had created the GoFundMe and noted that anything over the funeral costs would be donated to a charity, as I wanted to ensure the funds were applied to the funeral. They made plans to have the service in a church for $275 and no reception so they could pocket the remainder of the money. I told them I was liable for the money and it needs to be applied in accordance to what I had in place. I said if you want to spend everything on the funeral it's fine. They went ballistic as both kids had rent due, which we found out the father was paying and neither had enough to cover. I was called selfish and other horrible names as I stole their money. I was cold-hearted for wanting to make a donation over handing them the cash. I said I could close the GoFundMe and tell everyone to take their donations back or pay for the funeral. They reported the GoFundMe as fraud. They are harassing my family and friends, telling them how awful I am when I wanted to ensure my husband's brother was respectfully remembered and taken care of. I am not allowed to attend the funeral, so my husband and I are planning a wake instead, with express consent from our donors. I have also refunded over $3,000 in donations at this time. Opinion. NTA. If they need money, they should have asked for it, not take it from the funeral fund. Those who donated did so for the funeral, nothing else. To give it to them would have been fraud.